The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. It's your midweek fix for racing news and information. Brought to you by the Championship Racing Network. Now let's head trackside to join your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson.
Welcome into the latest edition of the Crossed Flags episode. This is, 17, I believe?
I think so, yeah. 17 or 18.
Was that right, Molly? 17, or are we at 16? She's going to double check and just to make sure that I have the count right. Either way, we're getting up there, and we appreciate you, as always, being a viewer and or listener to it. And pass the word. Tell everybody to subscribe about it. 18. Wow.
Yeah, 18.
We're older than I thought. We can vote. We're officially able to vote or something like that. Plenty to get to here, and we're going to talk about a signing and a divorce, and we're also going to get into the whole situation about Chicago. Year number 2, and I'm not sure whether this experiment needs a year number 3. We'll get back into that.
Yeah.
First things first, we're going to kind of run through some of the things that have kind of broken here over the last couple of days, really, and 2 of them actually happened today. The first one is we're keeping you up on the whole situation with John Force. Mm-hmm. John Force, you might remember, Virginia Motorsports Park. He was in a very, very bad accident and caused him to have to be airflown from Virginia Motorsports Park up to a hospital, which we have since found out was Virginia Commonwealth University's medical center. And they had him in ICU for a few days, and then after a week-ish, they moved him into what they call neural ICU, and they said he had a traumatic brain injury. And that is unfortunate, but it's also something that we kind of figured when we looked at not only just the picture, but we knew about the description of how not only did the engine blow up, we found out why, which we'll get to in a minute, but he slams into one wall and then into the other wall at 300 miles per hour plus. Yeah, I'm sorry. Your brain is just not going to be able to handle that kind of impact and that kind of jostling around.
No.
So here's the good news. He's been released from VCU Medical Center. Now, he's been airflown, whatever. A med flight, basically, took him to a rehab center much closer to his home in California. So at least he's near his home now, and he's in a rehab center specifically that concentrates on brain injuries like this. So that does mean that he's making progress. It's still a long road to go. They're still talking about this being a massive brain injury. You saw the statement there. You can see it you'll be able to see it on our screens behind us here very, very shortly, in the fact that he's cognitive. He's talking with doctors and nurses, has been for a little while. He's been talking with his family that's been in the hospital with him the whole time, but he's still working on some of the motor movements. He's still working on trying to get everything to come back 100%. So it's not complete. Again, this is a long, long road. And we've said this on this show.
Right.
That we hope this doesn't mean the end of his racing career. And we sincerely mean that. But at the same time, we understand this may take untold amounts of weeks or months.
Let's hope it's the earlier than the latter. But I'm afraid it's going to be the latter. But with his brain injury combined with the broken wrist that he has, and I think a broken sternum as well, he's got a long road to go. But I would rather talk about this and recovering from injury than him succumbing in a crash.
Absolutely, yeah, because that would have been much more somber. Brittany Force had her birthday on Monday of this week, and she showed a picture. She had John out. They were in a wheelchair. They went to go celebrate her birthday, but went and got ice cream. Again, broken sternum, traumatic brain injury, shows that he's got a cast on his right wrist, all of that. And this is before they flew him out to California for transfer to that rehab center out there. Again, we wish him nothing but the best, all the best when it comes to that. Speaking of the NHRA, we have seen schedules drop for Formula One, for IndyCar, for Formula E for 2025. We've been waiting for both the NHRA and NASCAR. The NHRA has dropped their 2025 schedule. We now know what it is. If you want details on it, make sure you tune into the Saturday show.
Yep.
9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time. We'll go through the whole schedule from top to bottom, front to back, and give you all the information that we can find and know, because I'm sure some details about networks and which particular divisions are going to be there. Because of the Mission Foods Drag Racing series, there are 4 divisions: Top Fuel, Funny Car, Pro Stock Motorcycle. While the top 2, Top Fuel and Funny Car, will be at all of them, Pro Stock Car will have a much more selective run. You know, and I'm just throwing out the number because I have not actually taken the time to look at the schedule. Let's say it's 22 races in all. Pro Stock Car might be at 18 of them. Pro Stock Motorcycle, 16 to 18 of them. So we'll have all that information coming up this Saturday on the Championship Racing Network. Again, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time. So hopefully you'll be able to join us then. That brings us to a movie. And we're working on young Molly. She said that she recently watched Talladega Nights. We're going to bring her on. She's going to do her kind of movie review on it once she's actually watched Days of Thunder. We'll make that a 2-for-1. But Formula One has a movie coming out, and they have been spending this year so far working with Formula One, and they've been very open, Formula One has.
They have.
About working with them. They've given them garage space. They've allowed them to take a Formula 2 car, kind of rebody it as a Formula 1 car. They've allowed them to go out there during practice sessions and get some actual on-track film done with them in traffic. Obviously, they're not going to be part of a race. That's something else entirely. Could go back to the whole Days of Thunder thing on that.
Yeah, we could.
But either way, this movie will star Brad Pitt. It is being produced by Apple Plus Productions. We have found out it is not going to simply drop on Apple Plus. That was what we had heard initially, was that this was not only to be produced by Apple Plus, but to be streaming only. Now we're finding out it's going to be released in movie theaters. It'll come out about this time next year. They put a teaser trailer out, though. They've got enough footage out there. They were able to put a teaser trailer out there, and it dropped just before they aired the British Grand Prix on Sunday. If you have not seen it, go on to YouTube. Just do a simple search, F1 movie Brad Pitt. It'll bring it up. Mm-hmm. You've seen it?
I did.
Thoughts?
I'm going to be interested. For the clips that I've seen, it raised my eyebrow. But the entire scope of the entire movie, I want to see how they depict everything compared to how it happens in real life.
Sure.
Because when it comes to motorsports movies, I get real picky.
That'd be the driver in you. I understand
how
that.
they depict everything.
Sure.
Because I was on the set of the John Travolta movie that they filmed, Trading Paint. They get an A for depicting everything, but I was really surprised that it didn't do as good as it did in the overall grand scheme of how movies are rated.
Yeah, especially the racing world should have really kind of gotten behind that particular movie.
Especially here in this state where it was filmed.
Absolutely. And I'll say this about the F1 teaser trailer, because if there's one thing that I tend to pay attention to, and having been in and around the racing world like I have since, really about 24 years now, between Birmingham International Raceway, Talladega, and then being able to do some of the other tracks that you and I have had the chance to go to. Sometimes you can really tell that while they're trying to make it look realistic, they're not really going all that fast when it comes to the racing.
Not even close.
This one, I got to give them some credit. It does look like they've got some decent, maybe not F1, obviously, but it looks like they're running at some pretty decent speed.
What I could see out of it is, I would word it and categorize it as the speed they had in some of these shots was fair.
Yeah.
I'll be yet to be determined if is it decent, is it great, or does it flat out just suck? That's why I'm going to just say it's fair.
Yeah.
Because case in point, the trading paints, I'll give you an example because I was on the set and I was there because I was on standby. I had an opportunity to drive a car, but I never did end up getting in it. The speed that they depict in that movie was pathetic.
Could have been much better.
Pathetic.
Yeah, could have been much better.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was over there screaming, going, "What are you doing?"
Yeah. I mean, Formula One arguably is some of the fastest cars on racetracks, NHRA not included, some of the fastest cars on racetracks on the planet. Mm-hmm. And this is a teaser. There's no doubt about it. So you're probably getting enough to whet your appetite and maybe some of the best stuff. So can they keep that quality up becomes the big question.
Agreed.
And we really don't know. I mean, we know the plot. We've seen the plot, but the teaser trailer doesn't tell you anything about it. True. The teaser trailer is all action. But, take a look at it. See what you think. We'd be interested to find out what your thoughts are in the comments. Mm-hmm. So that brings us into the debut last weekend for IndyCar's hybrid system. And it raised my eyebrow because I didn't get the chance to watch it. I was involved with several other things on Sunday. You had the chance to watch it.
I watched it from start to finish.
And when you sent me a text and said Scott Dixon had already broken down right at the beginning, we're like, ooh, that may not be a good sign for the hybrid system.
Well, what it ended up being is the capacitor on the hybrid system that regenerates the electricity to recharge the system, the capacitor had failed. They was able to go in and and fix the capacitor. He came back, I think it was 20 or 21 laps after the start and just tried to manage the best that he could to be able to get extra points because he's up in the title fight. So I think it was 15 or 18 to go, somewhere in there. He just pulled in and parked it because the attrition rate was super low, if non-existent. So there wasn't a chance for him to gain, so they just parked the car. But everybody else's, I give it an A, a solid A. It did really well.
A lot of the drivers were very complimentary about it after testing, and from all the post-race interviews that I've been able to see, a lot of them said that they were very, very happy with it overall. It does seem to hold up to the promise of what they had said it was going to bring, and it was supposed to bring extra power. The speeds looked like they were up a little bit.
Speeds were up, yes.
That and I believe they kept the push-to-pass system in addition to the hybrid system.
Yes, it was, and now NBC and the broadcast team has got a way to show on the rundown of who's regenerating and who's using, which I thought was really good. So it shows who's on the button and who's off the button. But I got to tip my cap to McLaren, what they've done to help their three respective drivers to know what they're using and how much they're using. They've got a light system on their dash, not on the wheel, but on the actual dash of the car, that shows when everything's regenerating and when it's being used. Oh, okay. And other teams have got their eyes open to it, and they're talking about wanting to implement something within their respective teams as well to help their drivers know what's being used and what's not being used.
That's actually a very slick move. Congratulations to McLaren. That may have absolutely changed the way that IndyCar teams do this across the board. So I think it's very, very cool. I think it's very promising. And, hey, all the best to IndyCar. Hopefully it'll continue to be the success that it was, at least in race number one. Mm-hmm. All right. The reason we don't have a picture of this is because this happened literally right before we started recording this.
Yep.
We've been detailing the breakup or the impending breakup of Stewart-Haas Racing. Stewart-Haas Racing, of course, has announced several weeks ago that at the end of the year they were going to cease operations as a NASCAR operation, and it will continue in a much different form. It'll be called Haas Factory Racing. Gene Haas will be the owner. It'll be a one-car Cup team and a two-car Xfinity Series team. And ever since then, and I believe it started with Chase Briscoe, who asked Tony Stewart flat out, hey, are we clear to go start talking to other teams? And Tony said, yep, go see what you can find. And within a week, Chase Briscoe had an agreement, and it just waited for him to sign. So Chase Briscoe's going to Joe Gibbs. That we know. We found out not that long ago that Josh Berry has also signed. Well, Josh Berry's going to stay in the Ford camp. He's going to take over the 21 of Wood Brothers Racing. He'll displace Harrison Burton. The third Cup driver from Stewart-Haas Racing to sign with a new team, and I have to admit, I'm a little surprised he hadn't signed before now, mainly because we knew this team was a buyer. We talked to you about Front Row Motorsports. They had already announced very quickly that they were going to buy one of the SHR charters. So that meant they were going to be a 3-car team next year, and they were losing Michael McDowell, which means 2 seats were available. Noah Gragson has signed. Do we know all the details on this? In other words, they haven't announced which car he'll take over. Michael McDowell's leaving the 34. We figure that the second or that the third charter that they bought will be the 36.
Should be, yes.
We don't know whether he's taking the 34 or the 36 because Todd Gilliland will return in all likelihood to the 38.
I'm going to reserve the judgment on which seat that he takes. Simply because I want to see who the third person is that they sign.
Sure.
Now, the unconfirmed name that's being thrown out there to
There's always somebody that's linked, isn't there?
Fill the third seat that keeps getting thrown around is Sam Mayer. I don't understand why it would be Sam Mayer because he has no experience in a Cup car, not even a one-off start here or there.
True.
He's still got a ways to go from a development side. Everybody in some respective way has a ways to go in their development side if they're on the younger end.
And I would note this as well. He is in a very, very good ride at Junior Motorsports.
Extremely good.
He's in a ride that he can win races with. And maybe not this year, unless he gets really, really lucky. He could win championships in that car, at least one. At Front Row Motorsports, we've talked about their improvement over the past decade, really.
Yeah, especially over the last 3 years.
Yeah. And we have talked about that, and we have said, hey, kudos to Front Row Motorsports for being able to go out there and do that. And we love it, and I love that part of the story. But now you're expanding out into a third operation, which means you have to add not necessarily a third again as many employees, but now you've got to get another crew chief in there. You got to get another pit crew in there, and there's going to be growing pains. And then you want to bring in a driver who is an actual all-out greenhorn of the Cup Series. Might not be the best move. Would you be potentially good, considering the fact that you've got a young lineup? Let's assume that they did Josh Berry.
True.
I'm sorry, Sam Mayer.
Yeah.
Okay. You would have a good, talented, young lineup of drivers there. But at that point in time, who's your leader? Because you really don't have one. You don't have one of those guys that can come in necessarily and say, I'm going to be the leader in the clubhouse. Is it Todd Gilliland just because he's got the seniority? I'm not so certain of that. Is it Noah Gragson because he would have the most experience? I'm not certain of that either. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to put the leadership role on a guy who's never had a Cup Series start.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm going to hold my judgment and pick of who fills what's car until I see who the third driver is going to be. But if I had to take a shot, I'm going to say Gragson goes to the 34.
Okay.
Because it's going to apparently be the most fully funded car of the two that's open.
Yeah. Because Noah Gragson, like he did for Stewart-Haas Racing, he'll bring in those sponsors that he has. He's got Bass Pro Shops. He's got like Winchester Rifles, and he's got Ranger Boats.
Yeah,
Black Rifle Coffee Company.
Bass Pro, Black Rifle, Winchester, and Ranger Boats is all under the Bass Pro banner.
Right. And he brings that.
Yeah, he does.
So that's a big benefit to the guys at Front Row Motorsports who, and I haven't found out, is Love sticking with Front Row?
Love's is a Front Row sponsor.
So they've got that going for him as well. So it's not all on Johnny Morris, who is all in also on the 19 car. Talked about Chase Briscoe. All in on the 3 car right now with Austin Dillon. That's another story altogether. Not for this podcast. So, yeah, I mean, Bass Pro Shops heavily invested into NASCAR. We appreciate Johnny Morris and everybody at Bass Pro Shops for doing that. There's no doubt about it. But, yeah, that's looking good. That's the solid part. So we'll just have to figure out what's going to happen with that third car, whether it's the 34 or the 36. We'll have to figure out what happens with that third charter. As things progress, we expect that that'll happen here pretty soon. So we have a signing, and then we got a divorce. What do we mean by a divorce? Well,
I'm going to let him keep talking because I'm fixing to do something that I haven't done on the show yet.
When it comes to figuring out what's going to happen in the future, you are taking a chance when you sign somebody who has little to no experience in your series.
All right, the hat's backwards for this one.
There you go. Haley Deegan.
Yep.
I don't have a problem with Haley Deegan.
No.
I don't have a problem with AM Racing. I was happy for the two of them when they got together at the beginning of this year, signed a multi-year deal for her to move up from the Truck Series last year, where she raced for the past 3 years, up to the Xfinity Series. She was going to take over the number 15 Ford Mustang. They have a working relationship with Stewart Haas Racing to build the cars and the technical alliance and all that kind of stuff. But you and I questioned a little bit at the time, is this too soon? And the reason we asked that question was because Haley Deegan hadn't won anything. Now, she'd had a couple of top 10s, several top 20s. Most notably, though, what Haley Deegan had accomplished in her 3 years in the Craftsman Truck Series, before that the Camping World Truck Series, was that she was voted the fans' most popular driver each of those 3 years. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. You're the most popular driver, but does that necessarily warrant you getting the promotion from trucks to Xfinity when your resume doesn't back up your popularity?
That's going to be a no.
But unfortunately, that's what AM Racing did. AM Racing signed Haley Deegan to a multi-year deal. And then she got in the car and she did what she has done, which is unfortunately kind of get lost in the situation. She sits 28th in points after the Chicago weekend, which she did not race in. I'll admit to that. So that probably does not help her obviously it doesn't help her in the points situation because she scored none. Joey Logano took over the car. Qualifying wasn't great. First stage didn't look that good, but then they figured it out.
Practice was junk.
Somewhere down the line, the communication between Joey Logano and the crew and the crew chief got figured out, and he was able to wrestle a top 10 finish out of that. And I'm going to say it right here, right now. Haley Deegan wouldn't have gotten a top 10 finish out of that car at Chicago. Joey Logano did. Haley Deegan would not.
Joey Logano got lucky to get a top 10.
I won't deny that, but at the same point in time, with all the communication that was done, because there had to be communication to get that car done right.
True.
And then it's Joey Logano's experience.
True. But I'm going to back up. I'm going to back up and punt on this one right here. Here's why I said he got lucky. Okay. Practice and qualifying, and I'm going to borrow a line from Freddie Kraft and TJ Majors from their podcast that they do on Dirty Mo Media. He didn't set the world on fire. He was in the 20s to 30s.
Oh, yeah.
So everybody, are we sure it was the driver? Or was it the car? Okay. Through attrition and slow climbing, and I'm going to use that term very tightly, not loosely, slow climbing, he pulled that out. But I saw a transcript of something. I'm not solely pointing the finger at Deegan on this one.
No.
I'm not pointing the finger at Deegan on this.
I see where you're going with this.
My finger is pointed at Ford and AM Racing. Here's why. Number one, Ford, you're pushing somebody up way too quick that did not have adequate time. And I'm going to explain myself on that one in just a minute. Adequate time to develop properly. Here's why. She started out in Toyota. Ford snatched her from Toyota in 21. But if we all remember, 2020, these first rounds that she was seeing these racetracks, guess what? Was right in the middle of the COVID junk. And what happened during the COVID junk? Guess what? No practice, no qualifying. Guess what? You drop them off the lift gates, put them on the grid, and you go. That is not to one person's advantage whatsoever when you're as green as a pine tree leaf in Alabama year round. That's green. You're learning like, what am I doing here? What am I doing? And her only experience in drafting trim was in an ARCA car at Talladega and Daytona. And trucks and ARCA cars are totally, radically different animals when it comes to working air and drafting schemes. Anybody with a naked eye could see that. Heck, Ray Charles could see that. Secondly, when AM Racing is now on their third crew chief of the year, that's 3A. 3B, one reason that I have read that one of the crew chiefs was released is because he wouldn't change the car to what she was asking for. Okay, if she's asking for a change, you fix it. 3C, 2C, 3, whatever I'm on.
Close enough.
Close enough. When Joey Logano, a two-time Cup Series champion,
30-plus race wins to his credit.
I heard it with my ears and saw the transcript with my eyes that was printed out to be seen. When you have a two-time Cup Series champion that has to tell a crew chief how air pressure works to adjust the car to make it drive a certain way, and on a road course through left-handers and right-handers, that's not a driver problem. That is a crew chief and a team problem. The crew chief and the team has the car so far in left field that the driver doesn't even know what to do. If I'm the team owner here, and let's say I've got an upcoming hot shoe driver, Molly's my female driver, Steve is my crew chief. If Molly's having to tell Steve how to adjust the car and I'm the owner, what am I going to be looking at first?
With all due respect, and I'll put myself on the chopping block here, he shouldn't be looking at chopping her. He should be looking at chopping me. Because
that's a problem.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Basic education here. And Molly will get this when she watches Days of Thunder.
Mm-hmm.
It is critical that the driver and the crew chief figure out a way to communicate. Because if they can't communicate to work and make the car better,
you're going nowhere.
You're done.
You're through.
You're done.
There are scenarios right now in certain series that I know for a fact that are happening that the question, is it the driver or is it the vehicle and the crew? And it's apparent race by race, these scenarios, it's more the driver than it is the vehicle and the crew. This one, it's vice versa. Mm-hmm. It was the vehicle and the crew chief and the team and not the driver. TJ Major said it best. Ford rushed her too quick when she was coming up through with these minimal to no practice races and having to line up and go, hope for the best. See ya.
Yeah. And then the communication factor did not work between her and the crew chief, as is obvious by the fact that you got three different ones. So AM Racing releases a statement this week. They released it on Monday, and Hailie Deegan has a release that we're going to show you as well here in just a couple of moments. In the fact that they said all the right stuff. In the fact that, hey, we're going to split ways with Hailie Deegan, effective immediately, and they're going to go through this rotation of drivers apparently through the rest of the year. You had Joey Logano at Chicago. This weekend they're going to be at Pocono. We found out it'll be Josh Berry in the car. Okay, fine. Again, if Josh Berry has to go through the process that Joey Logano had to at Chicago, that 15 car's in a lot of trouble. And it doesn't matter who you put behind the wheel of that car. Again, he noted the resume. Matt noted the resume. Joey Logano is a 2-time Cup Series champion. The man's got 30 Cup Series wins to his credit. He's got a number of Xfinity Series wins to his credit. He's got a Truck Series win?
He's got Truck Series
Which
wins,
means
yes.
he's one of just under 40 drivers in NASCAR history to be able to claim a win in Cup, Trucks, and Xfinity.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean any disrespect to Josh Berry, but Josh Berry doesn't have that resume. And if Josh Berry is fighting the crew chief as much as Joey Logano did, you got problems.
I went back and looked at the roster of who the crew chief was for Chicago. The crew chief was somebody that he has had previous experience working with at Joe Gibbs Racing. Matthew Lucas. Matthew Lucas is a former Busch Series, Nationwide Series crew chief for Joe Gibbs Racing. Coach, not coach, AM Racing, you've got a problem.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to have a successful team and you're going to get cars and equipment and technical support from none other than Stuart Haas that has a very well-respected Xfinity Series program, you better put somebody on top of the box that knows how to turn an 11/16 wrench to put ride height one way or put an air pressure gauge on the tire instead of air pressure, right? Or make a call. That's borderline unacceptable.
Yeah. The thing that catches me about this statement is right at the very top. AM Racing and Hailie Deegan have decided to part ways effective immediately. If I'm Hailie Deegan, I'm probably the person who went to AM Racing and said, I might need to go because I think she saw where this was going.
What I understood and the things that I've read out through the whole situation of that, she was the one to pull the trigger.
So let's, Molly, go ahead and take a look at Hailie Deegan's particular statement here, because the way that Hailie puts it, and again, this is being very, I don't know, what do you want to call it, politically correct. I mean, look at the bottom here. I'm thankful for the following that I have and everyone who supports me. It's truly only me that knows the whole story and what I need to succeed. That tells me she understands there's a problem. Okay? Line 1 of AM Racing statement, last line effectively, ignoring see you at the track soon, of Hailie Deegan's statement, to me tells the whole story without even having to read the entirety of either statement. Mm-hmm. Okay? Do I think Hailie Deegan is talented? I think she's talented. Do I think she's Xfinity Series talented? Not quite yet. I think she probably could have used a couple more years in the Truck Series, to be real honest.
She had a legitimate shot to win Talladega this past April.
True.
Until Riley Herbst just decided to do what he wanted to do instead of, he could have had a better situation, push her out further, and then do a slingshot drag race to the line.
Yeah.
Which it probably would have caused a massive crash because they would have leaned on each other so hard. It would have been a Talladega Nights-esque finish.
Sure.
So, yeah, she could have used a couple more years, another year at least.
Yeah.
At least to where you get that a little bit of added practice time, which is more seat time, and the most invaluable, most valuable thing in motorsports, seat time.
Yeah. And what I would have done probably over the course of this year, whether it's AM Racing or whatever other Ford team, Ryan Sieg, I would have given her select races to get her feet wet in the Xfinity Series while she's running for points in the Truck Series. Let her get more comfortable behind the wheel. I know she had a handful, but
she had one at Vegas.
It's not really that much.
She finished 12th, but you cannot tell me under no circumstances that Stuart Haas did not prepare that car from corner to corner.
Oh, yeah. And it's obvious that Stuart Haas wasn't preparing the car from corner to corner
No.
for every race this year. 17 races in, average finish about 28th in points. It's unfortunate. We hope she finds herself another ride. AM Racing going to have to figure out what they're going to do as far as the driver situation is concerned.
Another thing on AM Racing, too, that throws the red flag up in massive ways to me. 2 weeks before Chicago, they had parted ways with their entire road crew and had a new road crew. Why so much turnover?
That does say something as well.
Is Wade Moore, the president of AM Racing, motorsports' version of David Tepper in the NFL? I'm beginning to wonder.
Maybe so. Speaking of the Chicago weekend, Year number 2.
Which needs to be the last one, but
Yeah. We found out, for example, that the beginning of the year, Busch Light Clash, past 3 years, has been in the LA Coliseum, turning a football stadium into a racetrack. Okay, yippee. Knock yourself out.
Yeah.
We found out pretty much that is done. Whether or not they go to another stadium, we keep hearing these rumors about Bowman Gray. We keep hearing the possibility of going back to Rockingham for the Busch Light Clash. Whatever it is, NASCAR will put that schedule out later. And we'll know officially. And we can end all the rumors and all the speculation. But the thing about it is, are we going to do a 3-year experiment in Chicago? Here's my problem. And I'm going to let him go. Again, I was busy doing many, many other things on Sunday. Wasn't able to watch this race. But he was keeping me updated through text. Mm-hmm. The one thing that hits me about this, for example, let's take year 1 of Formula One in Las Vegas last November. They knew what time they were going to run that race. They scheduled that race to run local time at 10 p.m. at night. Now, there were a few things why they wanted to do this. Number one, they wanted to make sure that this centerpiece race was going to air where Formula One is most popular, Europe, during prime time. Mm-hmm. During a time when the vast majority of the Formula One people would happen to be awake and watch it. Mm-hmm. Number two, they scheduled it at a time to ensure that shift changes at all the resorts and casinos along the strip had already taken place so that those employees would be able to get to and out of work. Mm-hmm. So there's a couple aspects there. But here's the other part of it. Knowing it's 10 p.m. at night, they know that they're going to need lighting. So they brought in lighting. NASCAR schedules a race on the streets of Chicago. Whether it's NASCAR doing it or whether it was strong arming by NBC, I don't know. And truth be told, I don't care, save for one thing that I'll get to in a minute. They schedule a race at 4:30 in the afternoon.
Eastern.
That's 3:30 Central Time, 3:30 Chicago. Very little margin for error. Even though you shortened the race from 100 laps down to 75, you're still in a situation where you take very little margin for error. And guess what happened? It rained.
Mother Nature said, I'm back, boys.
Just like last year when they had the big old monsoon and they had a hard time trying to get the race in, stopped it, restarted it, stopped it, restarted it. And despite the fact that they had wet weather tires again, they still stopped it. Caught flat-footed, caught flatly unprepared. Yet you're the one that decided to schedule this thing for 3:30 in the afternoon.
On a Sunday in a major city.
Why? Why are you putting this at a 3:30 p.m. local time start time, leaving yourself no margin for error at a facility that's got zero lights, knowing for a fact you're not going to be able to delay this thing until Monday? So you're forced to figure out a way to make this race official. You have to do it in some way, shape, or form. This is extremely bad scheduling on the part of NBC and or NASCAR. And I don't care which one it is. I don't care whether it's the two of them that went into it and agreed to it. I don't care whether NBC strong-armed NASCAR or NASCAR told NBC, this is the start time, like it or leave it. It doesn't matter. The problem is it's too late and you leave yourself no margin for error because you got to be gone. It's Chicago. It's one of the largest cities in the country. They're not going to let you just keep the streets closed as long as you want so that you can get a race in. It don't work that way. If you want to solve the problem of Chicago, problem number one you solve, schedule it at a time that leaves you a much bigger margin for error. 3:30 in the afternoon local time is not it. And I'll let Matt take the rest of it.
That is definitely not the resolution for that. Okay. I get the point of an NBC broadcast from looking at it from that side. I get the point they want to have a huge motorsports day being July 4th weekend de facto, considering it was only July 7th, way after that. But They want to have a huge doubleheader with Mid-Ohio, IndyCar, and NASCAR on the main network on the same day. Okay. But you're going to put your attention, I'm going to borrow the term from Buford T. Justice and Smokey and the Bandit. You're going to bring your attention getter as your ladder show in the summer in Chicago at 3:30 Central. What happens during the summer in most places? You're going to have pop-up thunderstorms and rain and showers. And granted, it was not in biblical proportions like it was last year. Okay.
Thankfully.
Granted. But if you start that race an hour and a half earlier, say at 2 p.m. Central, that race finishes to completion.
Mm-hmm.
Or here's how you do this right here. You flip it.
Ooh, there's a novel idea.
IndyCar, I know for a fact, IndyCar will run in the rain. As long as it ain't lightning, IndyCar will run till the cows come home.
See, and that was about what I was going to ask you there. Of the two series, NASCAR and IndyCar, which one's the one that's better prepared for racing in the rain?
That's going to be IndyCar.
Bingo.
Now, I don't understand. Well, they're dead. We got wet weather tires. We can run in the rain. We can do this. We can do that. We've got everything we need to run in the rain. Windshield wipers. Oh, bring them to pit road and park them. The way Tim Berman, the series director, sounds on the radio. Bring them to the pit road and park them. Why? You've got rain tires. You're not running at 190 miles an hour. You may be touching 130 at the end of a straightaway. But the man or the woman sitting behind the seat is holding the steering wheel. Common sense is going to tell them when to start slowing down where they can make their respective right-hander or left-hander. That's going to tell you that. But we've got rain tires, but we don't want to race in the rain. Oh, it's too much of a safety issue. Here's a better idea. How about we scrap this garbage race car that you have, bring back the old Gen 6 format of the you build them in the shop to the rules that's set forth. Last I checked, I didn't hear of a visibility problem with the Gen 6 car, with windshield wipers, with this, with that, because I think it was Austin Cindric, if I'm not mistaken, said that the rake on the windshield, which is the angle of the windshield, the rake on the windshield, the way the rain hits it and the way it dissipates off of it causes a visibility issue, wiper or not, because it's going off at a slower rate of speed. The air is pushing it over slower. Gen 6 car is sloped back. The rake is lower. So therefore, you've got a quicker exit speed of the water being shed off by wind or a windshield wiper. This race has got to go. I'm sorry. Now, the Xfinity race on Saturday was magnificent. I never thought today that I would see Kyle Larson get played with like he got played with, but Shane Van Gisbergen played with Kyle Larson that entire race. And it was shaping up. It was going to be the same thing on Sunday until Chase Briscoe decided to do it, missed the corner. He hit Van Gisbergen, put him in the wall, and ended Van Gisbergen's day. That's part of it. Things like that happen. But at the end of the day, this street race experiment has got to go, because when you see NBC Sports put out a digital article from Nate Ryan, and he's within the sport, one of the Chicago aldermen, which is a city councilman, said, we need to see the economic impact of it, but we think NASCAR needs to bring more money. Really?
That's the Chicago alderman sitting there basically saying, we know that we had a 3-year contract or an option for a third year, but we really don't want to exercise it.
Yeah, but then you got Brandon Johnson, the mayor, saying, oh, the energy and everything around the Grant Park 165 was great when NASCAR builds a 165-mile racetrack.
No, it's not a 165-mile
If that's a
racetrack.
165-mile racetrack, we're making one run to Milwaukee and back and calling it a race.
Yeah, if you want to know speed, we'll bring you to Talladega, Mr. Mayor of Chicago, but no, it's not a 165-mile-per-hour racetrack. You had about that many shootings in your city during the 4th of July weekend. Maybe that's what you were thinking when it came to the number 165. It wasn't the miles per hour that NASCAR was running on that particular track. No, it wouldn't bother me at all if they go away. And a lot of people have said that they would love to see the street racing thing continue. Just not in Chicago. Chicago does not seem all that welcoming to it. I get it. It's a centerpiece. You want to be up in the Midwest, and you have the chance to run it at an iconic backdrop facility like Chicago. Okay, fine, great, whatever. Go to a city, if you're insisting upon doing this, go to a city that actually embraces NASCAR. Because I'll be real honest with you, I don't think it's Chicago. But I also asked this question. You were running at places like Road America. You were running at places like Mid-Ohio. You've got relationships with those courses. Why are we spurning them to go run on the streets of a city that doesn't really welcome you?
Put the cars at either bring back Road America, which there was absolutely nothing wrong with. You had the fan turnout. You had monstrous crowds every single day.
And they're taking care of the track.
And the track
just got repaved.
Well taken care of. Or go put them at Mid-Ohio. Mid-Ohio's got the space to do it. I was up there last year in an epic rainstorm spotting a truck race in the pouring down rain with no cover. It's got the space to do it. It can handle a cup car. Question is well, let me back this up. And the racetrack drains off. That's a novelty these days for road courses. Chicago, you got to take a sweeper truck or a Tire Titans and blow off 6 inches of water standing in a crevice on Michigan Avenue. Mm-hmm. Give me a...
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but it's time for it to go.
Yeah. I don't see the benefit. I really don't.
I don't either.
You know, and again, I bring up the question. If you insist on doing this, number one, understand that you've got the possibility of rain. Let them switch to the tires. We've seen it done in IndyCar. We saw it right here at Barber Motorsports Park, as a matter of fact. We've seen it at Barber. We've seen it at so many other places. IndyCar switches to a wet weather tire as things, and they let the drivers and the teams figure out when to do it too, NASCAR. Formula One did it to perfection in Britain on Sunday.
Silverstone was really good.
Okay? Let the teams figure out when they're going to go to and when they're going to not go or go away from wet weather tires. Leave it to the teams. This is why they get paid the money they get paid.
Or from a meteorological standpoint, God, tough for me to say
Easy
today.
for you to say, yeah.
From that standpoint, let's look at it from this aspect. If you're dead set on doing it, change the date.
Or at least put it earlier in the day.
Because in the summertime, the jet stream moves, guess what, up north. Mm-hmm. What's up north? Chicago.
Yeah. Move it earlier in the day.
It was only a 20% chance of rain. Well, it's July in the summer, and you're on a body of water. That's going to happen.
We're here in Alabama where we do this podcast. People in Alabama, people in the southeastern part of the country, they know that a 5, 10, 20% chance of rain in the afternoon in the middle of the summertime means squat.
It means an 80% chance you're going to get hit with rain.
Means squat. You got a really good chance of doing it. Now, today, a little bit less humidity, a little less chance of it. But on days when we got like 80, 90, 100% humidity and it's sun shining in the middle of the day, heat causes all that stuff to evaporate up into the atmosphere, and those clouds can only take too much before they drop it again. Again, 20% chance of rain turns into 100%. Mm-hmm. Chicago is much the same. So if you're going to do this, like he said, flip it with IndyCar. Make the NASCAR race first. Make IndyCar the anchor leg. Again, we know this. They're much better set up to do racing in the rain.
They are.
Again, NHRA schedule, we're going to detail it in full come this Saturday. Showtime, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time. Hope you join us then. If we have any more on John Force, we'll update you then. Plus, we got all the other news, and that'll happen between now and then, and some of the stuff that we actually did not cover because there's some breaking news out there all the time, and there's news of the week that happens all the time that we don't necessarily cover here. We're just trying to give you a snapshot. We thank you for joining us. Hope you join us on Saturday on Championship Racing Network, and we'll be back next week with another edition, episode 19. Wow, who knew? Of Crossed Flags.
You've been listening to Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. For more content like this, subscribe to CRN Live on YouTube, and you'll be set to catch the 2-hour live show every Saturday morning at 9 Eastern, 8 Central.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.